father could fight. He was a hell of a boxer. His uncle Roger, I went up against him once or twice.
Joe Goossen was one of boxing's toughest trainers who never backed down from anyone. Coming from a boxing family in California, Goossen built his reputation by turning unknown fighters into world champions through hard work and discipline.
Here you see Oscar land a beautiful left uppercut. Right here you see Mayorga land a right uppercut.
He was known for his no-nonsense training methods and brutal honesty that many fighters couldn't handle. Goossen believed in old-school boxing values where fighters had to earn everything through sweat and dedication. He didn't care about making his boxers feel good about themselves. He cared about making them winners. His gym was like a military boot camp where only the strongest survived his demanding workouts and constant criticism. But Goossen's tough approach created many enemies throughout his long career. Some fighters felt he was too harsh and controlling. Others got angry when he told them uncomfortable truths about their abilities and dedication. Many boxers wanted trainers who would tell them what they wanted to hear, not what they needed to hear. His direct personality led to bitter feuds with some of the biggest names in boxing. Former students turned against him when they became successful and didn't want to follow his strict rules anymore. Other trainers hated him for stealing their fighters or criticizing their methods publicly. Goossen discovered that being honest and demanding in boxing made him powerful enemies. Fighters who once loved him eventually grew to hate everything about his training style. These 6 boxers became his biggest rivals and spent years trying to destroy his reputation in the sport. 6. Gabe Ruelas. At number 6 is Gabe Ruelas, the ungrateful fighter who turned his back on Joe Goossen after the trainer had made him a world champion. Goossen found Ruelas when he was just another unknown Mexican fighter struggling to make it in professional boxing. The trainer saw potential in the young boxer and spent years developing his skills and building his career from nothing. Under Goossen's tough training methods, Ruelas became a serious contender and eventually won the WBC super featherweight title. The fighter went from making small money in club fights to earning hundreds of thousands of dollars in championship bouts. Goossen had given Ruelas everything he needed to succeed in boxing. But success changed Ruelas, and he started questioning Goossen's training methods and fight selections. The champion wanted more control over his career decisions and didn't like following his trainer's strict rules anymore. Ruelas began listening to other people who told him he didn't need Goossen to stay successful. The partnership fell apart when Ruelas publicly criticized Goossen's approach and blamed him for some of his losses. The fighter claimed his trainer was holding him back and making bad decisions about his career. Goossen felt completely betrayed by someone he had treated like family and helped build from scratch. Their bitter split became ugly when both men started talking to the media about their problems. Ruelas accused Goossen of being too controlling, while Goossen called his former fighter ungrateful and disloyal. The trainer realized that some fighters would always turn against the people who helped them succeed. 5. Michael Nunn. At number 5 is Michael Nunn, the arrogant middleweight champion who thought he was too good to follow Joe Goossen's training methods. Nunn was a talented boxer with superior skills who had won world titles, but his ego was bigger than his accomplishments. The champion believed he knew more about boxing than any trainer and didn't need anyone telling him what to do. When Nunn worked with Goossen, he constantly argued about training routines and refused to follow the tough conditioning programs that made other fighters successful. The champion thought his natural talent was enough to beat anyone and didn't want to do the hard work that Goossen demanded from all his fighters. Goossen became frustrated with Nunn's lazy attitude and lack of discipline. The trainer had worked with many champions who stayed humble and continued working hard even after winning titles. But Nunn acted like he was doing Goossen a favor by training with him instead of the other way around. Their relationship exploded when Goossen publicly criticized Nunn's dedication and work ethic. The trainer told reporters that Nunn was wasting his talent by refusing to train properly and take boxing seriously. Nunn responded by making personal attacks on Goossen and questioning his knowledge of modern boxing. The arrogant champion claimed that Goossen's old-school methods were outdated and that he needed a more modern approach to training. Nunn's disrespectful attitude towards someone who had helped many fighters achieve greatness showed Goossen that some boxers were too proud to accept good advice from experienced trainers. 4. Freddie Roach. At number 4 is Freddie Roach, the rival trainer who became Joe Goossen's biggest professional enemy by constantly stealing his fighters and criticizing his methods. Roach built his reputation by taking successful boxers away from other trainers and convincing them that his wild-card gym was better than wherever they were training before. Goossen watched helplessly as Roach used his growing fame to lure away fighters that Goossen had spent years developing. The rival trainer would approach Goossen's boxers and promise them better training, more attention, and bigger fights if they switched to his gym. Roach seemed to target Goossen's fighters specifically because he knew they were well-trained and ready to win. The competition between the two trainers became personal when they started criticizing each other in boxing magazines and television interviews. Roach claimed that Goossen's old-school methods were too harsh and outdated for modern boxing. Goossen fired back by saying that Roach was just a thief who stole other trainers' hard work. Their feud intensified when boxing writers began comparing their training philosophies and asking fighters to choose sides. Roach's Hollywood connections and celebrity boxers gave him more media attention, which made Goossen even angrier. The veteran trainer felt like Roach was getting credit for success that belonged to other people. Goossen never forgave Roach for building his reputation by taking fighters that other trainers had developed. He saw the rival trainer as someone who didn't want to do the hard work of finding raw talent and building it from scratch. Instead, Roach preferred to steal finished products that were already successful. 3. Oscar De La Hoya. At number 3 is Oscar De La Hoya, the golden boy who rejected Joe Goossen's tough training approach because it didn't fit with his pretty boy image and commercial appeal. De La Hoya's team wanted a trainer who would make him look good for television cameras rather than someone who would push him to become a real warrior in the ring. Goossen believed that De La Hoya had all the physical tools to become one of the greatest fighters ever, but lacked the mental toughness and killer instinct that separated good boxers from legendary champions. The trainer thought De La Hoya was too concerned with his appearance and popularity instead of focusing on becoming the best fighter possible. When they worked together briefly, Goossen tried to instill the same tough mentality that had made his other fighters successful. But De La Hoya's promotional team didn't want their golden boy getting his face marked up in brutal sparring sessions or developing the rough edges that came from Goossen's military-style training camps. The relationship ended when De La Hoya chose trainers who would protect his pretty boy image rather than challenge him to become a complete fighter. Goossen publicly criticized De La Hoya's heart and dedication, saying the Olympic champion cared more about making money than becoming great at boxing. Goossen never stopped believing that De La Hoya wasted his incredible talent by choosing the easy path instead of embracing the hard work that creates true champions. The trainer watched De La Hoya win titles and make millions of dollars while always wondering what he could have accomplished with proper mental toughness and dedication to the sport. 2. Shane Mosley. At number 2 is Shane Mosley, the fighter who broke Joe Goossen's heart by abandoning him after years of success and loyalty together. Goossen had worked with Mosley since the beginning of his professional career, turning him from a promising amateur into a world champion. Their relationship was more like father and son than trainer and fighter. Under Goossen's guidance, Mosley won multiple world titles and became one of the most respected welterweights in boxing. The trainer had spent countless hours perfecting Mosley's technique and building his confidence for big fights. Goossen treated Mosley like family and believed their partnership would last forever. But success changed Mosley, and he started listening to other people who told him he needed a more famous trainer to take his career to the next level. The champion began questioning whether Goossen was the right person to train him for the biggest fights against superstars like Oscar De La Hoya and Felix Trinidad. When Mosley suddenly announced he was leaving for another trainer, Goossen felt completely betrayed and abandoned. The veteran trainer couldn't believe that someone he had treated like a son would walk away from their successful partnership without any warning or explanation. The split became bitter when both men started making public statements about their breakup. Mosley claimed he needed a change while Goossen accused his former fighter of being ungrateful and disloyal. The trainer realized that even the closest relationships in boxing could be destroyed by ambition and outside influences that turned fighters against the people who had helped them succeed. 1. Fernando Vargas. At number 1 is Fernando Vargas, the fighter who caused Joe Goossen the most personal pain by destroying their family-like relationship through greed, betrayal, and legal warfare. Goossen had discovered Vargas as a teenager and spent years molding him into a world champion, treating the young fighter like his own son and believing they would be together forever. Under Goossen's patient guidance, Vargas developed from a raw amateur into the IBF junior middleweight champion. The trainer had invested his heart, time, and reputation into making Vargas successful, often working for less money because he believed in their long-term partnership and friendship. But as Vargas became more successful and started making big money, he began listening to people who told him that Goossen was taking too much credit and not deserving of his loyalty. The champion started questioning every decision his trainer made and accused him of holding back his career for selfish reasons. Their relationship exploded when Vargas publicly attacked Goossen in interviews, claiming his trainer had stolen money and made bad decisions that cost him fights. The accusations led to bitter legal battles and lawsuits that destroyed any remaining friendship between them. Goossen was devastated by Vargas's betrayal because their relationship had been so personal and meaningful. The trainer had treated Vargas like family and never expected someone he loved like a son to turn against him so viciously. The legal fights and public attacks hurt Goossen more than any physical beating he had ever received in boxing, proving that the worst enemies in boxing are often the people you trusted most. Joe Goossen learned that being a tough trainer meant making enemies even from fighters he helped become champions. His demanding methods and honest criticism created bitter rivalries that lasted for years. Subscribe for more stories about boxing's most explosive trainer-fighter feuds and betrayals behind the scenes.